Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the pre-show talk for this wonderful new play, FRACKED. My name is Kate Mosse. I'm a novelist and a playwright, and you know the drill now, the biographer of CFT. And before we start, as usual, it would be great help to us. Who has seen the play already? Okay, who is going in a moment? Right. So no spoilers for anybody.
No spoilers.
No spoilers. I'm delighted to have with me on the stage the writer of the play, Alistair Beaton, and the director of the play, Richard Wilson. Both of them welcome returnees to CFT and to the Minerva in particular. So one of the things that was so extraordinary, Alistair, I'm going to start with you, about reading your notes in the programme. And if you have not bought your programme, ladies and gents, you should buy one. It's very informative.
You don't have to read it.
But you'll be pleased you did. It's one of those things that when you hear that there is a play about fracking, you start to think, right, why did that writer want to write about that subject? So what was your way into this? Why did you choose to write about this subject, and why now?
Yeah, well, in a way, it's not a play about fracking. I think fracking is the vehicle that releases a lot of drama and a lot of comedy. But when I began to think about fracking, which of course was a very contentious issue in this part of the world recently, I was struck very, very powerfully by the fact that among the protesters, it breaks all kinds of British traditional lines, class lines, age lines, and political lines. So you get nice old ladies who read the Telegraph, chaining themselves to fences, alongside grubby 18-year-olds who don't read anything at all. And I found that very interesting, because I like writing political drama, and I like writing political comedy. So in a way, it's a kind of non-political political play. It's not about party politics. It's not about the corridors of power. But in a way, it is about what happens when different conflicting interests in society clash. So what I liked about it really was that chance to do politics outside the normal frame of politics and write something that's not really a lefty play. I don't think it's a lefty play. I was asked that. I don't think it's a lefty play. But I think it's hopefully a subversive play.
It is also just wonderful. I saw it on Tuesday, and it's incredibly serious and thought-provoking, but also I haven't laughed out loud in a theatre so many times recently. And that was the joy of it, actually, that you were listening, you were thinking, what did you think about it? And then suddenly there was a hilarious moment, and you forgot all about it. So it's satire, though.
I suppose so. I never know what to call things. It's satire in the sense that it looks at power and how power operates. But although it's not exactly a balanced play, I don't know. Those of you who have seen it, would you say it's a balanced play or not? No. Sort of, yeah. Well, I've been pretending it's a balanced play. Because
there are people with all the views represented, maybe.
But it's satirical not just of the energy companies and government policy about energy. I think it is also gently satirical about some of the protesters. I try and take the mickey all round a bit. So I probably, as usual, will have offended everybody.
That's a very noble profession. But once you've decided that you're going to write something that is based on a point of conflict about the science, is the science safe, does it do this, does it do that, do you then have to go away and get on top of the science of it before you can start writing, or do you do that as you go along as the story comes out?
Well, both really. I mean, I found that I had to do a lot of research, both at a kind of personal level. So I went to different parts of the country and met protesters and councillors and people against fracking and people for fracking. And I also had to find out how the whole thing worked technically. So there's a technical consultant attached to the play who's a professor of geophysics. And I bombarded him with phone calls and meetings. So yeah, I'm useless at science. I mean, you're looking at a writer who failed O-level maths, okay? So I'm not good at anything in maths or science. So it was a bit of a challenge for me to get on top of the subject. And I must say that the more I got to know about the subject, the more I became firmly anti-fracking.
Yes, I was going to say, did you go in with a particular view? Did you know what you thought?
I went in sceptical of it, sort of doubtful, and I came out absolutely appalled by what it implies.
Yeah. And in terms of the way that you start writing a play, all of us who write have that thing of, what do you do with your research? Because your research isn't a play. So you mentioned a little bit about the way that certain characters came in. Was there a moment for you when you started writing a particular character that suddenly made you think, right, this is how I can write this play?
Yeah, I think that happened. This is fantastic. Richard doesn't normally let me speak this much.
He's being very well behaved and
thank you very much,
gentlemanly
Richard.
to the...
I will pay a terrible price in tomorrow's rehearsals. Well, one of the keys for me was that the more I found out about the anti-fracking movement is that it's dominated by women, strong women, incredibly brave, strong women. Some of them obsessive with rather weary-looking husbands. And that actually gave me a clue to the two main characters in the play, who are, without giving too much away for those who haven't seen it, an elderly couple who she gets radicalized by the threat that is coming to the village where she lives. And there's a slightly weary, battered husband, played by James Bullen. And I did meet a number of spouses who looked like they really, really wished fracking had never arrived. So that couple were a clue. And the second clue about characters was that there are PR people and lobbying very much at the heart of fracking. And that gave me a sort of opening for having a third main character.
Because one of the things, again, without spoiling anything about the play, is that there is a clear sense that there are people on both sides who are moral, who have a view based on what they passionately believe. But then there are others who really are in it just for money and profit and have no morals at all. So that seemed to me a very powerful message, regardless of whether you felt pro or anti, there are different people involved in this.
Yes, but the moral division for me was not clear. I didn't see all the anti-frackers as decent moral people and all the pro-frackers as villains. Genuinely didn't. And in fact, you know, I found interviewing people in villages who were in favour of fracking, they were quite often a lot jollier than the protesters, and you could have a much better lunch with them. So it didn't follow, but I did decide to make the guy who plays the head of the energy company in the play not a villain, because I think there are people who genuinely and sincerely believe that we need to keep extracting carbon, and I believe they're wrong. But I don't think they're all villains. Some of them are because they're in it for the money, whereas PR people, I personally don't warm to, because they're kind of hired guns, and that's where I've vented my spleen a little bit.
And a final question before we bring in very patient director Richard. What I loved about it, and I don't want to spoil anything again, I keep saying this, it is very current, it is moving, it seemed to me, almost on a daily basis. I wonder, as a writer, and then I'll ask Richard to talk about what it feels like on the other side, what happens in a political play where you do feel the need to keep slightly abreast of the context within which you are presenting your play?
Yes, well, I mean, every morning you wake up at the moment, you wake up in a different Britain. It's the most extraordinary period we're living through. And I felt that a play that does have politics in it, even if it's not party politics, has to kind of reflect that in a way. In a way, the play in a way becomes a debate, hopefully an entertaining debate about the nature of democracy and how it works. But I do occasionally tuck in, with the director's permission, I do occasionally tuck in a line that reflects something that happened the day before. And audiences do quite like it.
Richard, what do the actors feel about new lines tucked in the day before? And what do you, as a director, when you've created this wonderful thing, feel about that sort of tweaking?
Oh,
Ha-ha! Speechless!
It's very hard because you don't want to spoil anything you keep saying, naturally. Actors don't like to have something, although our group of actors, I mean, Annie Reid, we changed her last speech with a big rewrite, and she learned it that day.
She learned it in about an hour.
She learned it in about an hour.
Yeah.
It's difficult. I mean, obviously, actors quite like topical gags, but you have to be very careful that it doesn't become too gaggy. That the play has to hold on to what it's about.
So, when did you get involved in the project, and what attracted you to doing this play? Is fracking something that you were interested in anyway, or was it a comedy of manners that appealed?
Well, I just like new writing. I just like new plays. And when I read Alistair's play, I liked it. I wasn't quite sure what I thought about fracking. But reading his very well-researched play, I sort of became an anti-fracker, by and large. And I still am. It's clear... As the audience, those who are coming tonight will see that Alistair has really done his job in the research terms, and scientifically, I think it holds water. We've had experts in to talk to the cast, pro-fracking and anti-fracking. So we discussed a lot about what fracking is during the rehearsals. So I think it's scientifically quite sound, but there may be people here who are about to see it who are very... I think it's a balanced play. I remember Annie Reid saying about her adversary in the play, he's got a lot of very good lines, wanting to take some of them away, I think, from him. So I think it is a balanced play.
And what you've done, Richard, I thought, was that it is not only tremendous central performances from James Boland and Anne Reid, and they really absolutely are there, but it's a wonderful company across the board. There are some standout performances. Now, how do you as a director put a company together? Do you start with one person and then another, or do you do it in a more holistic way, I suppose, with all the roles at the same time?
Well, we had a read-through of the play, and I mean, I know Annie Reid, and we had talked about working together, but Jimmy Bolam I know as well, and he lives in the area.
He's a great CFT beloved actor.
Absolutely. So we had a read-through, which they agreed to do, and once we had done that, and we had the Chichester Festival had decided to do the play, they were keen to stay on board. Also, one of the reasons I think that Jimmy and Annie are so strong together is that they know each other terribly well. I think, well, they're the only two in the read-through. I think they were.
Yes, they were. That's right.
And then, what I was saying to the company the other day there what is wonderful about it is the diversity. I mean, one of our actors is just straight out of drama school, drama centre, and one of them is just very recently out of RADA. So it's a very wide range of experiences, and hopefully they'll gain a lot from working with Annie and Jimmy, although sometimes they're very badly behaved.
I think they've earned that, haven't they? They've earned the right to bugger around a bit.
Well, you try directing them.
One of the things that often directors, and particularly directors, but writers too, say about comedy is sometimes that when you move a piece from the rehearsal room into the theatre, it all kind of does this. It kind of changes its shape, and particularly in front of the audience. So how do you do that? How do you get them so thoroughly in their characters that when they start to have reactions, it doesn't change the pace of the play? Or is that what you're waiting for?
Well, it does, to some extent. You have to keep a beady eye on them. What is terribly difficult in a play is that we spend 5 weeks with just Alistair and I watching. Well, I kept Alistair out of rehearsal some of the time. But they perform the play with just 2 people, the stage managers, 3 people, 4 people. And then suddenly they have to come and do it to, and this play has been sold out long before we started rehearsing.
It sold out quicker than any play I can remember here, and there were no tickets to be got. It was just straight there.
I can get you one for £500.
Excellent. On eBay, sir.
So it's a very difficult, and you've got to watch, and Alistair and I are very aware of this, you've got to watch that the comedy doesn't divert. I was saying to Alistair the other day there, it's very interesting that laugh lines, you can always hear the laugh line because they say it very loudly because they want their laugh. Some of the other lines don't get quite the same value.
But with a written joke, and then it takes its shape in the mouth of the actor speaking it, and you all find it funny, does it ever happen that when it comes into the room, when it comes to us, that you can kind of hear the tumbleweed and it suddenly doesn't seem funny? What happens with comedy when that happens? Well,
comedy is everlastingly surprising to you because what we laugh at in the rehearsal room, the audience very often just don't find funny at all. But then Alistair and I are very bright, of course.
Yes.
Extraordinarily bright.
And quick on your feet, I'm sure.
Absolutely. It's fascinating. But the other interesting thing to try and encourage in the company is that not to get the same laugh every night. I'm always saying, don't worry if you lose a laugh, because there may be another one around the corner that you wouldn't get normally. It's a fascinating and
we can bore on about it endlessly, can't we, Richard?
We can.
But can I pick up something you said, Kate, about you talked about a gag or a joke, and of course sometimes you do write a gag, but quite often you're getting a laugh which just simply comes out of character, or there's one particular laugh in this play. I'm not going to say what it is, because you might not laugh tonight. That is simply the laughter of recognition. The audience recognise something from their own lives that sort of takes them by surprise, and they go, yes, that's how it is, and that gets a laugh. So sometimes on the page, a laugh line is not a joke.
Yes, yes. And you both know this theatre, you've worked here before. Is there any part of you as the writer, Alistair, or you as the director, Richard, do you feel that you therefore kind of know who's going to be watching it? And if so, does that make any difference to how you direct or write or stage? You are both such gents, what can I say?
You should see us off stage, though.
Yeah.
I don't think you can write for a particular audience, really. I think you have to kind of, sounds a bit mad, but you kind of write for yourself, hoping that somebody will respond to it. There are issues down here that one can pick on that may pop up in the play, and that's like doing a little personalised signed copy for the audience. But the play as such, I think you just have to write the play and not think too much about who's going to be in the audience. Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, it's so long ago since I directed here, I can't remember what it was like.
We're all still here, basically. All of us.
No, I don't think. I think you do your best for the piece, and you don't really. Well, I suppose the artistic director wouldn't do certain plays in Chichester, but this one is a very universal play, it's a very accessible play, I think.
So it's your work. You do it from the inside out, as it were.
Absolutely, I think so. I think so.
And one of the things you mentioned, the fact, and we will repeat it, that this play sold out the second it was put on sale. It was an incredible reaction. Were you expecting that?
Yes, I personally was. Mainly because I was directing it. Is that?
I actually bought up half the tickets myself, Richard, just to make you feel better.
The just-in-case tickets. Alistair, do you write to persuade or to entertain?
Well, entertain first, really, absolutely, always. I don't think it matters if however important your messages or your thoughts are. if it's not an entertaining and interesting evening in the theatre, I don't see why you're working in the theatre. So it's both these things, but for me, entertain first and inform second.
And how do you not guard against, because it is such a wonderful, fresh new play. I can't imagine there being any sense of it going out of date. But with anything that is political satire or political writing, even if it's not party politics or linked to a particular moment, how do you enshrine within it the sense of its longevity, the idea that this play will continue to be able to be entertaining?
I don't think you can tell.
No.
I think you just don't know. I mean, the most successful play I wrote was 15 years ago. It was called Feel Good, and it was the time when spin doctors were arriving, and it was New Labour was in power, and we were beginning to think that Tony Blair was perhaps not quite the saint that we had thought, before further evidence descended upon us, and it just landed at the right moment. And I thought it was a quite narrow little play about a comedy about British politics at a particular time. Well, since then, it's been seen in 15 countries. It opens later this year in Mexico City. And what had happened was it became a kind of universal play beyond what I thought. But I didn't plan it. I don't think you can plan it. I don't think you can plan for how long your play's got a life or where it might be seen. I think you write what you want to write and you kind of hope, I don't know.
And you've both done a great deal of work in different media, you know, in theatre, in film, obviously television. What is the particular joy for you two? You're clearly having a wonderful time. The company gives the impression of having a wonderful time. What is the particular joy of coming to do a piece of theatre that actually is only going to be on for a month?
Well, I always think, most actors worth their salt want to get back on stage at some stage. I think that's where they come from, I think. And that's why there are so many megastars who don't need to do theatre coming back to theatre. But it's just wonderful, as a director as well, it's wonderful to sit in an audience and watch what you've been doing in rehearsal for 5 weeks take shape. And that's very exciting. So, yeah, it's a joy to do. And of course, the thing about theatre is it's for that audience that night. Yes. They see a unique performance. Yeah.
And it's, for you, Alistair, presumably you feel, is it a bigger challenge? Is it a bit of a treat to write for this? How do you decide what you're going to do next? I think
one of the differences, which is crucial really at an early stage from the writer's point of view, is the process of commissioning or selling the play. Working in television is just horrible, and it's increasingly horrible because there are layers of decision making that everything goes through, and it's endless and it's very weary making. And the way this play got commissioned was I was working on a play, which you may have seen, the Brecht play Arturo Ui, which was here three years ago. Yeah, with Henry Goodman. And I was having a working breakfast with Jonathan Church. And at the end of breakfast, I said, would you mind if I put up the idea for a play? Have you got 5 minutes? And he said, yes. And I described roughly what I thought this play might be. And then he asked a couple of questions, and I answered them. And he said, that's a commission.
Never underestimate breakfast, ladies and gentlemen.
So that's fantastic. That is completely inconceivable in television. You'll go through months and months, and there are hundreds of highly paid executives whose only job it is to avoid saying yes or no, but saying maybe. So that's one of the fundamental differences at the early stage. In terms of the actual event, it's a cooperative endeavour, and if you can work in theatre and it works, it's fantastic. And it's so nice being in a room where you can hear people laughing at something you've written. It just makes you feel lovely inside. Yeah.
And
so you better laugh tonight.
Yes. I think the burden is on you now. I'm going to come to the audience for a couple of questions. We've got time for that. But a last question before I do that. In terms of the way in which you imagine the play in your head, then you write it down, and there's 3 drafts, 5 drafts, how many drafts?
Oh, more. Yeah, lots.
Lots of drafts.
Yeah, and you're changing it through rehearsals, and you're changing it through previews. So you can't really measure the number of drafts, but it's an ongoing process, right till today, I think.
And when do you
We made some changes this afternoon.
You know the play you've written? I ask because I write novels more, and I often don't know the book I've written until quite a long way into the process. Not quite sure. It's not, the paint isn't dry.
Yes, but then it's just you and your whatever you
my
use.
Imaginary friends.
Yeah.
Yes.
Whereas with us, it's all a collaborative process. So you, as the writer, you slowly lose your child. Your child is kidnapped by people like him. And you have to wave goodbye. It's a sort of creative version of empty nest syndrome.
I think you should probably put that on your CV. Richard Wilson, kidnapper of other people, of children. We're going to take a couple of audience questions. Could we have a little bit of the house lights up? And Louise has got a microphone. So would anybody like to start us off with a question?
I assume that there'll be plenty of material from last week's events and next week's events. Have you got another up-and-coming play on Brexit?
Actually, yes. Because I've never been so appalled by political events in my life. So yes, I really want to let it out of my system. Are you available, Richard?
Lady there, thank you.
You've just sort of answered my question, because once you were commissioned to write the play, how did Richard come in as director? Was that in your mind at the beginning, or in Jonathan's mind, or whatever?
I don't know if you know this, Richard, but I did want you. No, I asked. This is the truth. I'm not flattering anybody. I asked for Richard to be approached because I thought he'd be the right director for it. He wasn't, but there we are.
Because I presume that if you had somebody in mind and they weren't available, that might change what you felt about it.
I don't know, really. I think I just write the play, really.
No.
And then when I'd written it, I thought Richard would be good for this. It'd be perfect. Hope the next question's for Richard, otherwise I'm in trouble.
I think the thing about new writing is that you get a chance, because it's very, very seldom that a play is ever performed as presented the first draft. So the great thing about new writing, which I try to do all the time, is that you get a chance to work with the writer in draft 2, draft 3, or in this case, draft 44.
Which is clearly the magic number, or the answer to the question. Lady up the top.
I haven't seen it yet. I'm looking forward to it, and I much appreciate science being made accessible to a wide range of people. I think the media has actually failed on fracking. My question, when will it transfer to London?
It's when you tell all your friends that it's wonderful, and there's such a desire to travel to London to buy a ticket. I don't know. We're in the lap of the gods, and to some extent, the critics. So we can't answer that question at the moment.
Although it is an interesting thing that not only do you have a full slate of critics, but they are the #1 top stringer critics coming down. So there is already an enormous interest beyond West Sussex.
Although I should say what I think I just said to you earlier, I write the play for here. I write the play. If we can make a good play here work well for the people who come faithfully to this theatre, that's an achievement, and anything else is an extra, is a bonus. This is not sort of a vehicle to get into the West End. It's a play for here, for the people who come. Anything else, with a bit of luck, maybe there'll be a further life. That's how I view it.
So lady in the front row, and then lady up there. Thank you.
I've seen the play and appreciated the Brexit touches, but we've always been told that after the first night, after the press night, no changes are ever made. Now, are you going to give Richard permission to introduce whatever political changes might come up next week and the week afterwards and so on?
Well, he'll be off doing his show in Edinburgh, you know. So he won't be here. But I have had plays where I ring up every couple of weeks and put in a little topical. But you're fundamentally right. A play tends to settle in its agreed form by press night, and that's how it stays. But just occasionally, if the actor's willing, I can phone up and drop in a topical.
Yeah, there must be a moment at which the line is set, presumably. Yeah. Lady there, thank you very much.
Hello. I haven't seen the play yet, so I'm looking forward to it later. I'm just curious as to whether or not you've observed the cast. Maybe did they come in with an opinion or with a neutral opinion, no opinion about fracking? And do you think it's had an impact on their opinion of fracking now?
Thank you. Richard?
Well, I think everyone who came for the audition read the play. So I suppose that there might have been some actors who were sent the script who decided that it wasn't exactly to their way of thinking. I don't know. I couldn't answer that. But I think the cast are pretty in touch with the play and probably are, as a result of the rehearsal process and a result of the experts, are probably anti-fracking.
I know. But you mentioned that you've had expert advice, people coming in and talking.
Yeah.
Do you, as the director, ask them all to read particular things, or do you leave it up to them outside of the rehearsal room as to how much more research they do or don't do?
Well, my assistant director, David, is sitting here. I gave him the job of doing all the research.
Sneaky.
Sneaky. And he read up about fracking. He knows more about fracking than Alistair, I think.
So no, that's why I don't like him very much.
So we encourage the actors to do as much research as they could. And David produced various pamphlets and DVDs for them to look at. So I think they're quite well up on the fracking issues.
Because that's directors seem to have a very different, many people who've come to these talks before will know that some directors say absolutely they want everybody to read certain texts. And certainly Mark Hayhurst, who wrote the previous new play that was in here around the offensive of the Somme, had given particular titles as a suggestion. So
Right.
you leave it to, you run your room and you let them take it out.
No, we
there.
suggested, through David's research, we've suggested certain things for them to read, but it was up to them.
It's up to them to do it.
Yeah.
You said, following the lady's very good question, about the fact that the writer and the director are there on the first night, and then actually you both go to the next thing, and you are left in charge, and the people here and the cast here. Before we finish, it'd be lovely to know if you can tell us what you might both be doing next. I think you're starting again as the two Ronnies, aren't you?
Well, I'm developing a television series with another writer for Hat Trick, who, unlike Hat Trick, is an independent production company that do a lot of very successful comedy. I'm doing that, and I'm writing a new play for Hampstead Theatre, which will be on sometime next year. And I'm not telling you what it's about, not because it's a secret, it's because I'm not entirely sure myself.
You're waiting for the topic to come and tap you on the shoulder. Richard?
Well, as Alistair said, I'm going to the Edinburgh Festival to do a show, a one-man show about Victor Meldrew.
Who's that, Richard?
I think I was quoted sometime years ago saying, I never want to hear anything about that man again. But here I am. I did a charity show in Sheffield where I was associate director, and I had such a good time that I decided to do it again in Edinburgh. So I'll give you the dates.
I'm sure we could put them on the website. Do you direct, and this is probably a naive question, do you direct yourself?
Never.
No.
Never.
No, even though you are a director also?
Yeah. Never. I never try that. I don't think it works.
Because you need to know what they are seeing, the audience is seeing. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
I think it's the same. It's the same with writers who direct. I think you need somebody to test out the words you've written from a different point of view.
Yeah. Well, it's been fascinating listening to you talking about this. I think everybody here in Chichester is incredibly proud of the fact that this is actually the 4th new piece of writing or adaptation that's happened in this very short season so far. And it's a wonderful thing to have an audience that appreciates new work and people that bring it to life, as you've been doing. I think everybody here wants to wish you the enormous best of luck for tomorrow night in the press night. I really haven't laughed and thought and enjoyed a new political play, a play set now, so much for years and years and years and years. And if only I can find 500 quid to get that extra ticket from Richard, I will be in again to see it. Ladies and gentlemen, Alistair Beaton and Richard Wilson.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.